Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Mark. We're back again. New video today. Today we're going to be covering the great, all-time great, one of my favorite players of all time, Magic Johnson, who in my opinion is without question the greatest point guard in NBA history. And once again, before I get started, I do appreciate all the likes, all the new subscribers, all the comments and the compliments, and even the little critiques I've gotten so far. I need that because I'm trying to improve each video to make all my videos, as detailed as possible, and with the information I'm providing as accurate as possible as well. So I thank you guys for that. Once again, today we're going to be covering Magic Johnson. So let's get right into it. When Magic Johnson played in high school back in Michigan, he played for a high school called Everett. He got the nickname Magic by a sports writer at the time that saw him play. It was a game where he had 36 points, 16 rebounds, and 18 assists. Something like that. It might have been maybe 18 rebounds and 16 assists. But he had a triple-double, and the sports writer that was covering that game gave him that nickname, and he just kept it ever since. And his last season playing for that high school, he was able to lead his team to a 27-1 record, and he brought them to the state championship game where they were able to win. And altogether that season, he averaged 29 points and 17 rebounds. So he was a dominant player in high school. And of course, he had multiple colleges looking at him, like Indiana, UCLA. But he decided he wanted to keep it close to home. So it pretty much came down to either the University of Michigan or Michigan State. And he ended up choosing Michigan State. And in his first year there playing for that squad, he led them to a 25-5 record. And they won the Big Ten Conference Championship. They qualified for the NCAA tournament, and they made it all the way to the Elite Eight. And then his second year there, when he came back for his second year, he ended up leading them all the way to the championship. And of course, that's where the beginning of the rivalry between him and Larry Bird started, because he was able to defeat Larry Bird's squad. And in the process of doing so, he was also voted the most outstanding player for the Final Four. So altogether, Magic played 2 years in college, and he averaged 17 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 8 assists for the 2 seasons he played there for Michigan State. And then after that, he decided to declare for the NBA draft, and he was drafted number 1 overall by the Los Angeles Lakers. And in his first year there on the Lakers, they were able to bring home a championship. Now, their best player at the time, of course, was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was pretty much viewed as the best player in the league, really for like that whole decade, from all the way from the beginning of the 70s into the very, very beginning of the 80s. Kareem was viewed as the best player. So it was his team, but they needed a player like Magic on the team to give them the extra spark they needed, because they weren't able to win championships with just Kareem. So Magic was able to give them the extra spark that they needed, and in his first year he averaged 18 points, almost 8 rebounds, and almost 7.5 assists. And he made the all-rookie team. He came in second in the Rookie of the Year voting behind Larry Bird. And he also was named the All-Star starter that year in his first season. So he had a great first year, but to top it off, the Lakers got to the finals, and they squared off against the Philadelphia 76ers, led by Dr. J at the time. And they had them down 3-2, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar got injured in Game 5, and they didn't have him for Game 6, which would be in Philly. So Magic showed his dominance in that game, and he had 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists, and he was able to lead them to a victory as a rookie. His first year, he was able to close out that series, and he was awarded the Finals MVP. Now, of course, a lot of people do think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar still should have won that, and I partially agree, but they gave it to Magic in the heat of the moment because of his outstanding performance in Game 6. And then the year after that, he missed a lot of time during the season, and the Lakers got bounced early in the first round of the playoffs that year to the Houston Rockets. And then in '82, he had a full healthy season. They were able to get to the finals again, where they squared off with the Philadelphia 76ers again, and they were able to beat them in 6 games again. and he was the NBA Finals MVP again that year in the 82 season. And now, of course, the 76ers came back the next year with a vengeance. They added Moses Malone, paired him up with Dr. J, and they were able to square off against the Lakers again. Now, the Lakers had some injuries that year. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was James Worthy's first season. He was injured. I think Bob McAdoo was injured, and maybe one other person. But they were banged up a little bit. And, of course, Philly, them bringing in Moses Malone, that was the piece that they needed to be able to get over the hump. And they were able to sweep the Lakers. And that would be the last time Philly represented the Eastern Conference in the finals in the 80s. So going forward, that's when Magic and Larry Bird continued their rivalry with each other in the NBA. In the 83-84 season, the Lakers and the Boston Celtics squared off. Of course, the Celtics were able to defeat them in a classic 7-game series. And Magic had a couple hiccups in that series, and he got that nickname Tragic Johnson after that series for not really performing that well in the clutch. I know there was a game where he let the shot clock run out. I think it was game 4 where he missed a couple free throws at the end of the game. Just little things like that could have changed the result of the series, maybe. But they lost. They came back the next year, squared off with them again in 85. They were able to beat them in 6 games. And Kareem was the MVP of those finals. That would be his last finals MVP performance that he had. And Magic, he was dominant in that series as well. He averaged 18 points and 14 assists. And if I'm not mistaken, him averaging 14 assists, that is the record, I think, for most assists per game averaged in a single final series. So he was extremely dominant. One could argue that he maybe should have won the MVP award in that series, but they gave it to Kareem, and that's fine. In 86, they were actually upset by the Houston Rockets squad with Hakeem Olajuwon on it. And that was Hakeem's second season. They were able to upset the Lakers in 5 games in the conference finals. And then they went on to lose to the Boston Celtics that year. And then in 87, which would be Magic Johnson's first MVP season in 87, they were able to get back to the finals and square off against Boston. And this would be a tiebreaker between Magic and Larry Bird because at the time they both had 3 titles. And the 2 times they faced off with each other, they each won 1 apiece. So it would be the tiebreaker for them. And Magic was able to get that victory. Now, as I stated, that was Magic Johnson's first MVP season. And he averaged a career high in points that year. He averaged 24 points a game and 6 rebounds and 12 assists. He had a dominant season, and he had a even more dominant finals series where he averaged 26, 8, and 13 and shot like 55%. One of the best finals performances in NBA history that Magic Johnson had that year against Boston. And, of course, most people already know he had that game-winning baby sky hook in Game 4 to put them up 3-1. So they were able to get that victory, and then they followed it up the next year where they were able to squared off against the Detroit Pistons, who were able to dethrone the Celtics in the East. And that team was able to take them 7 games, and they actually had them down 3-2. The Lakers had to win the next 2 games to win the series, and they were able to do so. Now, Magic was the best player for the Lakers that year and for that series, but James Worthy got the Finals MVP because of his Game 7 performance, where he had a triple-double. James Worthy, arguably the greatest Game 7 performance in NBA history, definitely in the Finals. He had 36 points, 16 rebounds, and 10 assists. All-time great performance by James Worthy. So he was awarded the MVP for that final series. The next 2 seasons, in the 88 through 89 season and the 89-90 season, Magic won back-to-back MVP awards. And in the 89 season, that was Kareem's last season, they were able to get to the finals. They swept everybody en route to the finals, but then they ran up against that Pistons team who was hungry. They were very hungry that year, that Detroit Pistons team, with Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars and Rodman and Bill Laimbeer, Mark Aguirre. All-time great team the Bad Boy Pistons were for those 2 seasons that they won in 89 and 90. In the 89 season, the Lakers lost to them. They got swept Magic went down in game 2, I think it was, game 2. And that was pretty much all she wrote after that. And then the year after that, Kareem retired. Magic led the Lakers to the best record in the league that year, but they were upset by the Phoenix Suns, led by Kevin Johnson, who I did a video on as well. Kevin Johnson, Tom Chambers, very good team they had in Phoenix. They were able to upset the Lakers that year, and they got beat by the Portland Trail Blazers, who ended up losing to the Detroit Pistons in the finals. And in the 91 season, they had a brand new coach. It wasn't Pat Riley no more. It was Mike Dunleavy. And they had Vlade Divac at center his first season. And they finished with the second best record in the Western Conference that year, the Lakers did. And they were able to beat the Portland Trail Blazers in 6 games, led by Clyde Drexler in the Western Conference Finals. And they were able to get to the finals, where they lost to the Bulls in 5 games. And that was pretty much a passing of the torch moment from Magic to Michael Jordan. And then, of course, after that, that's when the whole HIV thing happened with Magic, and he stepped away from the game. He was still able to participate in the All-Star game in '92, and that was a classic All-Star game because he came back and played, and he did win the MVP of that game as well. And he also played in the '92 Olympics, the '92 Dream Team, where they were able to win there as well. And after that, he came back briefly in the '96 season. He didn't play the whole season, if I'm not mistaken, but he came back. The Lakers did make the playoffs. They didn't win. But that would be the last time Magic Johnson played in the NBA. It would be the '96 season. But that was just a rundown of his career. I tried to keep it all in order from what he did from start to finish. Magic Johnson, in my opinion, of course, in most people's opinions, I think, agree that he is the best point guard in NBA history. To me, it's without a shadow of a doubt. And I think he's a top 5 player all time, certainly top 10. All-time leader in assists per game average for the regular season and the playoffs. All-time leader in total assists for the playoffs in NBA history. 5-time champion, 3-time Finals MVP, 3-time regular season MVP. One of few players that have won on all levels, high school, college, and in the NBA. And also won in the Olympics. So it doesn't get much better than that, man. But that's it on Magic Johnson. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And for those of you who didn't know too much about Magic already, hopefully you learned a lot. Everybody have a blessed day. All glory be to God. Thank you again.